guy. I really want to thank you for taking the time and even pushing me to make the initiative to do this joint.
You know, you said you wanted to do it. I agreed. So I'm like, what's up with it? Let's get it.
Yes, indeed. So
yeah, thank you for having me, bro.
Man, I wanna start off by, like I said, I formally thank you, but I think it's important to acknowledge, like, I really have had an interest of, like, where can I add value? That was like one of the first things that I had when I seen you recently. I was like, how can I add value here at Rec? I actually think I stopped you at InvestFest at one time and asked as well.
Word.
That's always been my question, but then now, like, I got this interview, I've been sitting down, I'm like, do I want to ask Will about his past? Do I want to break the time in half? Do I want to get, like, secrets out of it? Like, I'm trying to see what position I want to take, so I think what I came to was, like, I just want to get to know you personally. You know what I mean?
Let's do that.
Because I think relationships and, like, things fostering and building organically long term is, like, that's the best way to do it. That's what's at least been the best for me. How would you say, like, you formed the majority of your relationships to even start this or, like, get to where you are today? Like, what are the key things that you incorporate with your relationship?
To relationship building?
Yeah.
Man. So one, I think it's dope that we're having this conversation because we've known each other for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Which we'll probably get into at some point. But for me, man, relationship building, one, building organic relationships is helpful, right? Because I think they're just, like, sturdier than when you build a relationship just off the super transactional nature. But what's helped me over time get better at relationship building is being able to get really clear on, like, one, what are my values, right? Because then that indicates, like, what types of people you even really want to be building relationships with. Because if you're just trying to build a relationship over, oh, he has this thing or they have this thing, I don't really think it could stay a healthy and organic relationship for a long time because it's like, yo, I'm just not on what you want. But if I don't know what I'm on, then I can't really even understand how to navigate that. And then the other thing I think gets in a lot of people's way is not knowing what their value is. Not their values, but, like, what is my value? Like, what can I actually contribute to the world around me? Because once I know exactly what I'm good at and, like, the value that I can offer to people, whether it's to a creative or to someone who is a decision maker at a brand, if I really know what I have, then when I go out networking, I'm only showing up in the room looking for who I can be valuable to, right? Similar to kind of what you were saying, you was like, yo, how can I add value? Because I think when I was younger, I would show up in a room and be like, all right, who in here could be valuable to me? You know what I mean? And I think a lot of us go through that, but that's not what real networking is. It's about really being like, I have something I can offer this space. Now let me just figure out who needs what I have. You know what I mean? And I think once you get an opportunity to do that with someone, I believe that most humans are reciprocal people. So it's like, yo, this person showed up. He made my life easier in some way. He helped me achieve a goal. So when it comes back the other way around, they're like, yo, all right, well, how do I help them? So that's what relationship buildings look like for me. Getting clear on what my value is, then getting to know someone and understand, like, what challenges they have that I can solve, showing up and being like, yo, I could do this.
You talked about, like, the mindset and even just the belief. And that even kind of, like, made me think of myself and some things I want to ask. But you highlighted the belief part. So what do you believe, like, is the reason behind why people show up opposite in the way that, like, where do you think that thought process or conditioning kind of come from? Like, why we like that?
Man, I just think it's, especially if you come from a city like Philly, it's a rough city, man. And I think we all grow up. I'll just speak for myself. I grew up where resources were not plenty, right? So that scarcity mindset was easy to fall into, where it's like, yo, if I don't get what I need, I won't have it, So it's like, when I go into a room and I know in my spirit, I feel like people have more than what I have, I get into, like, gimme mode. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, y'all got this. I don't. So who could give me?
Definitely, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
So it's like, who could give me what I need? But that's just not the way. I think the way is, like, showing up the opposite of that and being like, I do have value. Like, as a person, as a creative especially, because we could turn ideas into value, and then figuring out, being like, all right, cool, so who can I give it to? Because what I think we forget is, like, for real,
Sound good?
yeah. For real, like, people love helping people, especially when they feel like they don't need to be helped.
Say that again.
People love helping people, especially when they feel like they don't need to be helped.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Or when they feel like that person needs help and they're already helping themselves.
Yeah, like give an example.
Yeah,
so
tell
like
me
what you mean.
So to the latter part, it's like, yo, if your car breaks down, don't get out and just be like, oh man, what was me? Get out and start pushing it. Because if people see you pushing your car on the side of the road, they're way more likely to be like, oh, let me give him a hand. He's already doing it.
Instead of just standing there and be like, I need help, people be like, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And then
That's real.
And I'll give you this example too. From the first part, I was saying like people want to give to people that feel like they don't need what they're about to give them. So it's this weird thing, bro. But like if people perceive someone as being like well off, they're way more likely to spend money with that person because they feel like this person don't even need my bread.
Yeah.
So the only reason they're doing their thing is because it's just valuable and they're maybe doing it for some other reason. But if like you see the bull on the train trying to sell you something crazy, you like, I don't know if I trust this,
Right.
you know? Because you're like, man, you trying to hustle me. But if he come up and he look a certain way and you like, yo, I got this product. You want it? Oh, no? All right, that's cool. I'm going to keep going. Now you might feel like, oh, actually, that might be something there.
Real facts.
So it's just a whole like psychological thing.
Nah, and I want to unpack that part later. But you it's like a lot of things that you mentioned come from like origin. So let's introduce yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then I mean we'll hop right back in. But I want to make sure that I give the opportunity because people are like, who is Bull?
Let's do it.
Right?
Yeah.
So just introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, man, I'm Will Toms. You know, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm someone who just deeply loves Philadelphia and who really deeply believes in, you know, this intersection of creative people and also how we can build businesses around our passion. So, you know, a lot of my come from and my backstory is I am a creative. So I, you know, first started off writing poetry as a young boy, just kind of figuring out myself and everything that was going on in my life and my family and navigating all those challenges as a kid from Germantown. And then over time, really like understanding that if I wanted to stay creative and I wanted to spend time around creative people, which I love, we all had to figure out the money part.
You're right.
Right? Because the thing that usually gets in our way of continually doing what we love is not being able to make ends meet. So I started leaning into that and just figuring out, yo, how do I bring a business acumen to pair that with my creativity? And after doing that, you know, successfully, you know, to a certain degree, I was like, yo, this is what all creatives need to understand. You know what I'm saying? And fortunately, you know, I can't skip this part. I was that kid who I'm shooting music videos and all this stuff for the homies and getting to a point where I was almost playing like a pseudo management role where I got to see just how hard it was, especially for creatives in the city, to be able to build here and like really figure it all out. And there was at a time back in like 2012, 2013, 2014, where the narrative in Philly was like, once you get to a certain point, if you want to be successful as a creative, you had to leave.
I started hearing. I wasn't even here yet, but when I arrived, like that notion had set in.
Right?
Wow.
And people believe that narrative.
Yeah.
And for me, I was lucky to get recruited. At one point, me and Dave were throwing parties, throwing shows, throwing open mics. And I got recruited to work for a marketing agency called Fameus. So I was just this kid, didn't even graduate college, but they saw that I was clearly like somewhat decent at marketing because we were selling out shows and all this. We was throwing 5 shows a week at one point. And they was like, yo, we want you to work at this digital agency and we're going to teach you real digital strategy. And they let me walk into a client roster of Eminem, Ice Cube, Shady Records, Live Miami. And they taught me a lot of what I know about digital strategy and how to do it right online, which is how to build a powerful brand, how to get it in front of the people who actually care about it, and then how to get them to move, to do a thing. And bro, when they taught me that, it blew my mind because I'm like, this is the exact skill set that if I could teach my homies, they could go from $0 to making $60,000 a year doing what they love. And again, this is back in like 2013, 14, 15. And the goal was like, okay, well, if I teach this to people and we understand how to make money on the internet, we would still need a certain resource foundation.
Okay.
Because it's like, I can't teach you this information, but like at that time, if you don't have a camera, then what is it worth if you can't create the content?
All right.
If you can't connect with people to collaborate, then like, how do you actually get things done? So that's when Rec was born.
I got you.
right? So Rec was like the resource hub, and I'll break that down in a second what it is, but it's really just the vehicle to allow a creative person to tap into the resources they need, get the information they need to build the business, and have like-minded people to be able to collaborate with. So over the course of the last almost a decade, my work, along with my business partner and our team, has become Rec, which is this like membership club for creatives, for artists, to be able to get what they need, pay, a monthly membership, access to $1 million.
I'm gonna say we in this joint, right?
You
know what I'm saying? We in here.
We in one of 4 studios,
Yeah.
one of 14 private studios here, from photography studios, design studios, collaboration rooms, podcast studios, editing station, co-working space, Live Nation venue, like literally everything we need as creatives. And then on the other side, we also run a creative agency. So we get to work with brands, of all sizes, local brands, all the way up to Google, Cash App of the world. And when they hire us to do creative services, we go right back into our membership, and we hire members to get paid to do what they love to do.
That's fly, bro. And it's like, I know it, but when you explain it, it's like, that's a vision that we all have. So like there were so many things in there just from the story alone that I want to unpack, right?
Yeah.
In terms of things that I am trying to figure out, and then also just to like pick into like more of what's going on here on Rec. So I'm gonna start with my own personal questions, so we got more time to deliver value to everybody from the perspective of Rec Philly. So you mentioned earlier before, you were good at making relationships. What I've struggled with is that formal part, right? Because I'm very organic. People rock with me in regular time, but I think what I've always struggled with is coming with that formal approach. Yeah. And like you said, that perceived value.
That's right.
Right? I'll even be honest, like I've always been like a really like grumpy about it type vibe. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause I'm just, I don't know where that might come from. Like you said, it could even just be the scarcity mindset around what has to be invested to captivate people. Yeah. Right? And it's like, are you really invested in what I'm saying and doing, or is it because I look like I got it? Yeah. I've actually had people walk up on me and be like, yeah, you got it. Right. And it's like the way that they sometimes they treat you when they think you got it is different than when they think, you know what I mean? So could you just expound on like that ethic of how you maintain your own values that you mentioned, but also showing up in a manner that can be influential to others? Yeah,
100%, bro. And I want to talk about something that you mentioned, but I'm gonna start here. So what we're really talking about is like, how do we communicate value?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Communication.
And communication is multiple parts. It's like, what do I want to communicate, right? And I'm going to express something. But then I also have to be considerate of who am I communicating to, and how are they going to hear the message that I'm going to communicate? Because like, you could be saying one thing, right? But if the other person speaks a different language, the communication is not going to happen because they're not going to hear what you said. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think the challenge in that frustration that you mentioned, right, and that grumpiness comes from it's like, yo, I'm communicating a thing and I know this is probably good for you, but you're not hearing me. Mm-hmm. And not being heard is so frustrating, bro. Yeah, And what happens is, let's just keep it all the way frank, especially as like black men who are navigating spaces and trying to get resources and things like that, the world is not excited to help us get what we need all the time. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm saying that very politely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what happens is you either can get mad and want to change the world and make that not true, or you could just say, I'm gonna just change myself and make sure that I can learn to communicate in a way that people can hear me.
All right.
And in the beginning, I used to also want to just change the world and be like, it shouldn't be this way, yada, yada, yada. Bro. But the game is the game.
The game is the game. It's like you're going to start dribbling the basketball outside the lines and throwing the football in the stands.
And wonder why they don't let you in the league, right? It's like, but you're not even playing the game. Yeah. So I think there's a level of any game when you first sign up, like you got to learn the rules. Yeah. And then you can choose to play it how you want to play once you learn the rules. Mm-hmm. So for me, man, any space that I went into that I didn't have any experience in, which was a lot, I don't come from a family of business owners, so I had to learn the lingo of like business terms, right? Just understanding all that stuff. And then also like I was raising capital. Before I could go and try to raise money from somebody, I had to know the language, So I think it's just about learning the language, understanding, okay, like I say things this way, but y'all hear them this way, so let me use the language that y'all use so you'll understand me. but never losing yourself in that process. But it's just like, if I go to China and I'm looking at people and I'm speaking English, I might be better off if I spoke Mandarin.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm just add to like the sentiment of creatives and how I even ended up here at Rec Philly is because what you mentioned, that frustration or that idea, that belief, that negative belief that the support system or the resources in the ecosystem that you need is not proliferating around you. That's something that when I talk to other creatives, I recognize myself in them. And then that's why, like you said, I recognize where I can make that change within myself where maybe I can't change everything else in the world.
That's right.
So I want to talk about how that information that we can gain about, like what you said, how to make those changes, how to show up in the room and learn those languages. Like sometimes that information, we're not always receptive to it.
Right.
Right. Like because of that emotion. So.
And pain even. I mean,
there'd be real trauma. Yeah. Like sometimes you might have got burnt. Like something might have really happened. So, right. 100%. I don't want to just invalidate it to a feeling. Right.
Yep.
So where would you say is a good place, or where did you start and like recognize? I think that's even a better question. Where did you start in transforming that mindset into saying like, all right, look, I know what I can change about me, and that's where I'm going to start building the blocks of where I'm going to go.
Straight up. And I'm going to say it from this lens. I just jumped out and started building my first business at 21. So like I had to learn on the fly, right? And those learnings came from a lot of like painful moments. And I'm going to say this. When we was in the warehouse, I watched this video from a guy named John C. Maxwell, and he had this concept that he called the law of the lid. And basically he said, we have to just admit that our businesses can never be more successful than our personal level of leadership.
Okay.
So when I heard that, I was like, dang. So what that means is if I feel like Rec is plateauing, it's because I've plateaued as a leader. And I got to take the accountability for that. You know what I'm saying? And like, sometimes a lot of us are afraid of that level of accountability. Yeah. You know, we want the wins, but like we don't want to stand out in the front and be like, I have to also own this loss, you know? So for me, there was a lot of trauma that I had to unlearn in order for me to even be willing to be accountable. You know what I'm saying? To be like, yo, I failed. Yo, this or that. And like for me, bro, when I started doing the work, you know, it was a lot of like therapy and like, you know, unfortunately I've always been raised in faith, you know, so like my faith has honestly been like my X factor in so many different ways. So I would say this, like I had to learn, like I was a people pleaser, OD, you know what I'm saying? Trauma response. I used to make myself feel small all the time. Like I would go in a room and like, I know the answer, but I don't want to speak up because I'm like, I don't want to take up too much space. Trauma response, you know what I'm saying? Like even just like having the discipline to like do the same thing over and over again. I couldn't stick with something. Every day I want a new idea. But then it's like, yo, but you didn't finish the last 10 ideas.
The last 20.
You know what I'm saying? And what starts to happen is like you lose trust with yourself.
There it goes, right? No, that's what I thought. I'm like, man, how you trust this person? Right, yeah.
Right? Because if someone else did that to us,
you'd be burnt.
You'd be like, yo, bro, the last 10 times you said we was going to hang out, we never did it. So why the 11th time I'm supposed to be like, all right, bet, and actually believe you? But we do that to ourselves,
right?
With creative projects, bro. Yeah. So it's like I had to really unlearn all those things so then that way I could like brick by brick rebuild it. So for real, when I coach artists now to build businesses, before we even give business strategy, we have to talk about what's your relationship to money? Because a lot of us don't have a healthy one. You know what I'm saying? Like we grew up and people was like, oh, if this person got a lot of money, they must be a crook.
Yeah.
Right? And then,
I definitely grew up, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was said, you know, in my household before. And then before I knew it, I would start self-sabotaging before I would ever get to a point of having money. And it's so subconscious, bro. Like procrastination. It just comes
Somebody else is going to get it anyway. You know, stuff like that.
You know what I'm saying? And you got to unlearn that stuff. And it's hard. But, you know, therapy helps. You know, having a really strong group of people who have achieved the things you want to achieve helps. Mentors help. But my faith in God, man, I think is at the really core of it. Because when you really believe in God and that higher power, and you know that grace, that love that is just given to you, then you could give that grace and that love to yourself. And then you don't have to try to show up feeling like you got to be perfect. Because that's what I was doing. I was like, got to be perfect. Can't let people see this or see that. But yeah, I got to a point where I'm just like, yo.
I mean, yeah. Let's talk about the perfectionism part, because that's gonna tie into how we got here today at Rec Philly, how I became a member and everything.
Okay.
Just a little bit about myself, like you said, similar background. I'm from Virginia, and so when I came up here initially,
Newport, Virginia. Is that
Newport News, Virginia.
Newport News. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I was raised in Newport News, Virginia, and my guy, he went to school at the University of Arts, so he was just showing me around. Actually, one of the first things I ever came to was one of Lewis's Jones at the Dungeon.
Hey, word.
Like way back.
Yeah. I remember that.
So, I mean, that was what actually captivated me to say, I'm coming here. Because I'm like, there's no windows in here, but we're having a great time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is energy. Yeah. Like, I feel like this is a safe place to be.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward, that landed me at the warehouse that you mentioned.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the window
my man's
factory.
was like, yo, bro, I got this little warehouse you could stay in if you come here. And then I get here, I'm like, this is not, I'm thinking I'm about to be in a little penthouse.
Right. It's not very fly.
Yeah, so.
But we made it do what it do.
Oh, so
right?
that's what I was about to say. It's like one day I was just popping out to do something, and I ran into you, and it was just like a very casual exchange. I didn't even know who I was talking to. I didn't know what the vision of Rec Philly. I didn't know anything. I just probably just was only here for like 5 months.
Another bull in a warehouse.
You know what I'm saying? With mad creative people in here, like, it's a vibe.
For sure.
And so then fast forward, I was able to just exponentially like grow. Yeah. Like you said, from just being around creative people, going to creative spaces. I eventually opened up my own creative space, and then, like you said, that continued to flourish. And then that moment of what you mentioned, recognizing where the size and the direction of your brain goes in correlation to yourself.
That's right.
One day I was at the space, and it was the exact opposite, and I would like your opinion on this when I say it, right? Or at least in my I believe it was the opposite.
Sure.
So one day I was sitting at the space, and I'm like, I wanted to be able to motivate and influence other people to do things for themselves that wasn't sinking in. So I'm like, all right, maybe it's something that, it's not even maybe it's something. I was communicating with people, and people's interests were to, what you said, see people who had the outcome in their lives that they're looking for, someone that they could be motivated and inspired by, not informed, right? Like, I'm trying to be motivated and inspired to, like, oh, that's what it looks like when I get there.
Yeah.
I wasn't practicing that. I was practicing being informative, practical, executing on a, so very oriented in that fashion. And what I recognized was through this one show that typically I would incorporate 4 to 10 people just so that I could create what I believed was the impact or influence behind it. But I took all those people, I stripped it all down, and I said, look, I'm just going to promote it. I'm just going to go all the way in. And one day I walked in the room, I'm like, this is the exact same turnout. So I'm like, maybe I haven't looked at how influential my personal brand is. Sure. Maybe I'm not looking at how much I do already motivate and influence people to be in this room. Yeah. They don't need any information. I just need to continue to grow. Like, so that's where I'm at now. That's how I ended up at Rec, because I'm like, where would be a place that I could be where people perceive that growth and that influence? That's good. And I said, Rec. Yeah. I'm like, that's a place that if I would have known, I probably would have never even opened my space, because it would have functionally and financially, it would have been way more cheaper, bro. I'm like, I would have been able to do the same thing. Right. But it's like, I didn't understand how important what you were saying was. Like, people want to be motivated, inspired, and see how, like, what you doing is going to be beneficial to them once they apply what you're saying. That's right. So where do you think the connection between where we at today and, like, the road that we've both taken to get here is, like, related to how people can, like, hear what we saying and say, like, oh, okay, like, that's what I'm doing wrong, or that's what I need to be doing?
Man, I think about it like this. I think because I've seen you over the years, and I've seen you build the space that you built and all those things, it's like we both have big hearts for people. So I think we feel like we could just teach them and just give them the information that we've consumed. But it don't connect. I've learned it just don't connect until people can just lead by your example. Okay. You know, so I feel like when you threw that show and you were able to just fact the room out by yourself, all of a sudden your voice gets so much louder to the people that you just were talking to before, because they've been able to see you do it. It's almost like if you have a gym teacher who's super overweight and they're saying like, yo, but this is the strategy to get in shape. It's like, I hear you, but like you not know better than me.
Like, do it with me, right?
You know what I'm saying?
I just want to see it, right? Yeah, real rap.
But the reason why like anyone will listen to what LeBron says about ball is just because like look at what he does with the information he has.
Facts.
Right? Because it's like no one wants to just be taught that. But
Yeah.
like as soon as someone shows you, okay, cool, you have the information. That's it. Someone told me one time, there's this guy named Naval. He says, the best marker of someone's intelligence is them getting what they want out of life.
Absolutely.
Because you could be a brainiac, but like if you don't actually use that information to do the thing, then like what's the point? It's like not even information at that point. It's just entertainment.
Real rap.
You know?
Yeah, I've found myself in a loop of like learning things and not applying them, and then being like, oh, this is my favorite show now.
Right?
This is my Netflix. Like this, I think it's better because it's not Netflix.
Right.
No, this is Netflix right now.
That's so real, bro.
You
And
know
I
what
think
I
a
mean?
lot of us sometimes do that. But anyway, I say all that to say, bro, like there was a point in our journey where like we were trying to help so many artists and be like, yo, you can use these strategies, yada yada. But when we were able to also at the same time apply them to ourselves, the business started to grow.
Yeah.
And then as the business started to grow and I remember the first time we went to South by Southwest and did a all Philly show there with Uzi and Freeway and all these artists, people started paying attention more.
I get you.
And then we started being like, oh, yo, but we could work with this brand. People started paying attention more. So then it was just like we started to just do the things first. And then when people would be like, yo, how you do that? Now we can actually have a real conversation.
Yeah, now they're asking.
Exactly.
You ain't even trying to, yeah.
Because sometimes it's like we be trying to get people to take information that they don't even ask us
They
for.
didn't even ask, yeah, right.
And that's just not a hopeful way to be, you know? So the best place is like, all right, I'm going to do the thing. And then I'm going to be like, okay, cool. Hey, I have the thing. You can have it if you want. But if not, it's cool. And again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like people want to take things from people when they're not pushing it. Like they're literally just like, it works for me, so I don't really care if you have it or not. But it's here, and you know it's here.
Whenever you
know, and that's just a different place of leverage.
I mean, I think me hearing it, because I might have crossed these sentiments before in different exchanges, but I think hearing it from you is because it's so relative. It's so right next to me that it's like, it making me realize like, oh, okay, like it's a tweak. It's not a 360.
Nope, it's definitely
It's
not.
just a tweak. Like, you know what I mean? There's so much greatness that's within us, like you mentioned earlier, just starting from the mindset and just being in belief of yourself.
That's right.
You know, moving into spaces where you actually become the leader in the sense of how you want to see your vision.
That's right.
You know, lead yourself, and then, you know what I mean, others can see what you've led.
And that's
Right.
it. All that we just said in the last few minutes comes down to before other people will give you permission to lead them, they first have to see how well you've led yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I have the concept of this interview now, like the title and everything. I think I
Okay.
know how I'm going with this.
That's
Yeah.
fire.
Thank
And
you.
because, look, I'll tell you that a lot of times, and I've been here myself, I feel like you might at some point maybe have been there, but a lot of creatives be like, I'm trying to build a team, but people don't want to do the work. I can't find a team. And it's like, well, you can't find the team because you want to be the leader, but you're not leading.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, well, what do you mean I'm not leading? It's like, you're not even leading yourself.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, yo, you should be pushing your thing and people should know what your vision is, and then they'll choose whether or not they want to go where you're trying to lead them. But sometimes people be standing in one spot being like, I can't do nothing until I build a team. And it's like, but that's not how it goes.
Yeah.
You
You
know?
got to have some jerseys. You got to have an arena.
You
You got to
know,
have
like-
somewhere for us to play and compete.
At least a goal.
Yeah, like right, a hoop.
You know,
Yeah,
right.
real rap.
So-
Okay, so we're here today. It's 2024. We in Rec Philly. And I want to extend to you, you know what I mean, like that I'm proud of you, because I mean for
I
real,
receive
because
that. I receive
I mean I don't, like I said, I don't know what your inner circle like, but I know like with the people who I've been around recently, they're not hearing that.
Yeah.
So
That's real.
I'm very proud of you because there's a level of self-belief in your team and yourself that you have to have to even just be willing to make an investment like this towards yourself and
Fact.
other people.
That's a fact.
You know what I mean? So
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit, you're welcome. I want to talk a little bit about the business of it, and then, you know what I mean, we're going to let it rock. So when you built out this space initially, how did that look? What was that vision like? Because we've seen it on the gram. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I've seen it on the gram. I've seen the hard hats, and I've seen it coming together. And then I looked back, and then I was like, oh, it's already done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
but there's a lot in between those.
yeah, right. So what's that process of like
Yeah.
attempting to level up? I guess that's what we'll call this part, right? Because that's what it simply was. It's like you took what you already had, the memberships, the visibility, the hard work you've done, and you built a space that reflected the value that you've placed in the brand.
That's right.
So
and you already kind of called out, I think the most important part is like, before we had this multi-million-dollar facility in Center City at 9th and Market, we was in that warehouse at 9th and Dolphin. And like that warehouse allowed us to build the very smallest version of what the grand vision was. So like, you know, for us, and we was at 9th and Dolphin for years, you know, 3-4 years, building a membership program there. We had already had 300 people paying a membership up there. Yeah. And you remember, no heat, no AC, 4 flights of stairs, you know? So it was like the people who were investing then were like, this is clearly a need. So when I got to the opportunity to come to the gallery, the conversations with the people, you know, the landlords here and all that stuff, like, I wasn't just a kid with an idea, right? Like, we've already been able to build a business that hundreds of people want to pay every month to be a part of. So it was just like, look, let's paint the picture for them. Let's talk in their language, right? Of like what the numbers look like and all the value that us being here will bring to them, right? It wasn't just like, yo, give us this and this is what it's going to do for us. It was like, no. Us being here, this is what it'll do for you. Do you want thousands of creatives to be coming through here, spending money at your spots, right? Around, yada, yada. So we could do that. But I think in addition to that, there was also a lot of things that we built up as traits that helped us in that earlier season that we had to unlearn and release in order to get here.
Oh, okay.
Because, for example, I put it to you this way. Like, the best way to put it is when we're figuring it out in the beginning, you're in, like, survival mode. And, like, there's a lot of traits that we learn to survive that are no longer useful when it's time to thrive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you got to unlearn a lot of that stuff. And I think sometimes people aren't willing to release
maybe your
things.
identity. Be a little bit into your identity. I felt that. And, you know, I wanted you to mention a little bit about what you were learning from building the space here, like some of the things you was learning.
Look, I'm going to just say it like this first. The beautiful thing about building something big is that in the same time that you're building it, it also is building you.
Sheesh.
So, like, for me, bro, when we first set the intention to come here, we didn't know anything about fundraising. We had to learn it. We got to learn it. I can't even say had to. We got to learn fundraising, right? How to raise capital, how to raise millions of dollars. I didn't know anything about construction, bro. Like, how to navigate, like, a real construction team of union workers and what that all looked like and contingency and a budget. What does that even mean, right? Now I know. Right. We didn't know anything about architecture, which now, honestly, I fell in love with the creative art that is architecture, bro. I thought architecture was all about building buildings. It's not. Architecture is about creating environments that help create a certain change in people.
Whoa, well, you say it like that, right? Yeah.
I could go off.
I felt that. I felt it.
But like, architecture is not about the bricks. It's about how do people interact with the bricks to do a thing. You know, like they design banks to feel a certain way for a certain outcome. They design schools to feel a certain way for a certain outcome. I don't believe in the way they do that a lot, right?
No. That's why when you said it, it locked in like, wow.
That's what architecture is.
That's energy.
About. Look, I'm going to just give you one quick bar that someone put on me about architecture. It changed my life. And then we'll go back to the question. Someone said to me, they was like, yo, do you know who the most important architect is to your life? And
I mean, in immediately, I would say God, right? That's immediately what you think. But go ahead.
But if you had to think about a man who actually was like an architect, I was like, I don't know no architects.
I don't even know one. Right?
He was like Ben Franklin, and I was like, well, one, I never even thought of Ben Franklin as an architect.
Nah.
But then I was like, why? He was like, Ben Franklin designed the row home. He was like, you grew up in Philly, so because this dude decided to say, all right, how do we design a very small footprint of land and then build the buildings tall? Stack them all up next to each other. Because the row home exists in Philly, where I grew up, now the whole socioeconomic layout of Philly is what it is. The way it's resource-stricken in certain neighborhoods and all of that, because of a decision that somebody in the late 1700s decided, because he knew that if he had a small footprint and it was super tall, he could pay less taxes to England. And now that one decision has decided how we interact with each other in our communities. But that's what architecture is about.
Right.
So the idea is designing a place that's meant to create an outcome. So if I was the bull who said, yo, I want creatives to be able to win here in Philly, where resources are accessible and education is accessible and like-minded people, okay, cool. How do we design the environment for that to happen?
Form denotes the function.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, or the function informs the form.
Yeah.
In that sense. Yeah.
So I'm gonna hit you with like just some speedy questions.
All right,
You know
let's
what I mean?
do it.
Just stuff that come to my mind after, you know what I mean?
Let's do it.
So when you first started being a creative, what was your biggest challenge? First, like, 'cause I remember you said you started in college or something like that.
Earlier than that. I was
Okay.
writing poetry as a kid.
Yeah, poetry, right? Yeah.
My biggest challenge was having the courage to share it with people and not care how they felt.
Okay.
I used to hide my poetry. I would be fire at writing it, but as soon as someone was like, yo, share it with your classmates, I was like, whoa, nah. Because I like almost felt found out or something.
Okay.
Like I didn't trust that sometimes people would be willing to honor the things that I was putting out that were really like meaningful to me.
Okay, so I know you said you were faith-driven. That's your superpower.
Yes, sir.
So what's the kryptonite?
The kryptonite it used to be, and I'm still working through it, a level of perfectionism.
All right.
But also, I think as like most high achievers, we always need another problem to solve.
Yeah,
right. So-
definitely. If I can't shoot a three, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna start getting it right. If I can't dunk, I'm gonna get my bunnies up. Yeah,
You know?
definitely.
So sometimes I'm learning that like there is a really beautiful power in being like enough, you know? Because I grew up, man, I was like, yo, I want to be a millionaire by this age, and eventually I want to be a billionaire, and like I got to analyze all that stuff, and like now I understand like what I truly want out of life, and it's not just the always want to do the next thing. Because that's my kryptonite, bro, and I think it even created the same ripple throughout the whole organization. Because like the organization picks up on
They fall in your lead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think both Dave and I, as Virgos, were always on to the next. Crush something we've never done before. It was amazing. On to the next thing immediately. And I think we built that culture in our team where it's like sometimes you got to just like sit back and appreciate what you just did.
Yeah.
You know? So that's what I think my kryptonite
Okay.
has been.
And then so that even brings me into my next one. So when you think about the vision for Rec, right? What's next?
Yeah, man. I believe that we've built something special here. So the next step is deepen the level of impact. Like
Okay,
I
go
really,
deeper.
I want to go deeper. Like I think it's cool to have X amount of members or whatever, but now I want to build the thing so that it's deeper impact for more of the members. And then after that, it's about, okay, this is a model that is helping in Philly. What other cities around the country and around the world need this model?
Okay.
So I want to be able to partner up with people in different cities around the world and be like, yo, here's the model, here's
I'm
the
excited,
steps.
bro.
You know,
I'm
to be able to
excited.
grow like
I
that.
dreamed about that part.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited,
I don't
yo.
want to say it, but I knew tabernacles, temples of like God, creation.
That's it, bro.
Yeah,
So
justice.
when you do the because we were just talking about the social proof and everything.
Yeah.
So how you
Shout out
feeling about
David
the summit?
Shands.
Yeah, how you feeling about the summit?
I'm excited, man. So, David Shands invited me to be on the podcast summit this year and to speak. I'm hyped, bro.
Yeah,
Because it's
very
just, I get to
exciting.
come and do what I do, which is I believe one of my callings is to empower creative people to do more of what they love, and usually through teaching business strategy and what I've learned. So I get to go do that on a really dope stage, you know, with some of the hitters, you know.
With the hitters
With
too,
the hitters,
boy, yeah.
bro, you know.
Okay, so my last one is, and it's gonna be a 2-part, John.
Okay.
So what's the one thing you want to share with everybody here? Because that's what my audience is primarily: creative entrepreneurs who want to
Okay.
utilize digital tools to build community.
Perfect. Those are my people.
You
Yep.
feel me?
Yep.
So where would be a great place for them to start now after watching this video?
Yeah.
And where could you give me some personal guidance in just what we talked about and
Okay.
unfolded, what you've seen? Where could
Okay.
you help me at?
Sure. So the first part, I would say the most important advice I would give to any creative is like, you got to know in your knowing of your knowings that anything is possible.
Okay.
Like, you got to know that you can do the thing you're trying to do, because if you don't, what starts to happen is subconsciously you start to get in your own way, right?
Yeah, them negative thoughts.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's like, oh, ain't no resources around. It's like, but are you as resourceful as you could be? Right? Like, it shows up in all these different ways. The procrastination, the letting other outside factors stop you from whatever, right? Like, some salesmen be like, yo, it's raining outside. Ain't nobody going to be out here making sales. And other guys like, yo, it's raining outside, lit, everyone's gonna be home. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just it's an energy of like, yeah, are you gonna do the thing or not? And that all comes from, do you actually believe it, right? Because like, if you don't believe you could do the thing, you don't do the behaviors that actually help you do the thing. You just find excuses. So that's the one part.
Yeah. Like you say, you have to believe it to do it. Like have that behavior. That was a powerful drum.
You have to, bro. Because it's like, yo, if you don't think you can actually be someone who can have a lot of money, you don't save, right? And it's like, well, if you don't save money, then you might not, right?
Have it.
So, and there's different strategies to that. I'm not trying to say like, but whatever. Y'all get the point. And for you, bro, I think I would just go back to what we discussed briefly earlier. I think it's like, as much as we're givers and want to give people information and all of that, which you should continue to do because I think that's what it's all about, it's also important to make sure that we're utilizing the information that we get, because the most powerful thing we can be for people is an example.
Okay.
Not a teacher. An example. Because Kobe didn't really teach that much.
Boy, no, he did not.
But he showed us how to do it, you know?
Real rap.
So it's all about that. And I'm taking my own advice in this too, man. Like, you know, we're building rec and all those things. But like, I also want people to be able to go to Will's Instagram and be like, yo, he's living it out as a creator, right? And I feel like I'm doing a decent job at that, whether it's publishing my book or speaking more. You're going to see me creating content more consistently. You got to be the thing. And I think, you know, people can't be what they can't see. So, like, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for people around us is not try to save everybody. It's actually just to embody what it looks like to be the example.
I think that's what we're going to be the shift in the paradigm of. A lot more of that. Right now, it seems like pioneering, but I think by the time children come, we're gonna normalize that, bro. I appreciate this.
No doubt, man. Thank you for having me, bro.
Yeah.
This was dope.